They said the church emptied itself in a single breath. One hymn ending in silence, the pews vacant before the echo faded. No one saw who locked the doors, or who screamed first. 50 years later, the stone shell of Saint Athelred stands like a wound that never healed. Its cross bent, its bell tower hollow. Locals claim the screams still rise from the basement whenever the wind turns west. A sound so human it freezes the marrow. Tonight, Evelyn Price and her brother Samuel walk that forgotten path, their cameras cutting through the fog like knives through breath, chasing the echo of faith turned rotten. Every story begins with an opening door. This one begins with the sound of it closing. Every town has its ghosts, but Draycott Hollow has its congregation. The night St. Athelred's closed its doors, 42 parishioners vanished mid-service. Some said they walked into the fog and never came back. Others whispered that Father Keene led them below, where salvation took a darker form. The church remained sealed until the mountain reclaimed it. Now, even the air feels consecrated to decay. Evelyn and Samuel enter as though crossing a threshold between memory and punishment, unaware that something beneath the altar is already listening. Evelyn's voice shakes as she reads from her notes. Stories of a mass of renewal led by Father Keene on the night of disappearance. Parishioners described strange humming, voices layered like 1,000 mouths chanting as one. The candles burned black smoke. Witnesses outside saw light spill from beneath the church like dawn bleeding from the ground. Then silence, if faith is a door. This church was the moment it locked from the inside. The first recording is almost inaudible. Whispers under static, overlapping fragments of the Lord's Prayer spoken backward. Then, a scream cuts through, raw and unbroken, lasting longer than lungs allow. Evelyn drops her pen. The recorder clicks, rewinds itself without command. Somewhere beneath them, wood creaks, slow and rhythmic, like footsteps tracing an old ritual. They find the trapdoor under the altar, locked from above with an iron bar fused by rust. Evelyn kneels, tracing carvings in the wood, Latin words half burned into the grain. Domus sanguinis, the house of blood. Samuel breathes. It's just a story. But the air shifts. The candles stretch long, thin shadows downward, drawn toward the basement like gravity reversed. Somewhere beneath the floorboards, something sighs, tired, patient, and awake. No one knows what lies beneath St. Athelred's. The church was built on hollow ground, its basement carved from limestone tunnels that once served as miners' catacombs. Evelyn's hands shake as she pries the rusted latch, the hinges shrieking like metal in pain. The air that rises is colder than the grave, carrying the scent of wet stone and candle ash. Samuel hesitates, filming her from behind, his lens trembling as if afraid to focus. They step into the dark, one rung at a time, swallowed by the weight of the mountain's breath. Above them, the altar closes itself, sealing them below like an offering. The basement smells of rot and mildew, yet beneath that, incense. Something once sacred lingers in the air, now curdled into a metallic sweetness. Evelyn whispers that it feels alive, her words swallowed instantly by the space. They find rows of pews arranged underground, all facing a crude stone altar that bleeds candle wax down the walls. On it lies a cracked chalice filled with something dark. Samuel's light catches the reflection of dozens of rosaries, strung across the ceiling like cobwebs of faith, gone feral. They play another tape found near the altar, labeled Homily the Four. A male voice, calm, steady, recites in Latin, translating midway into English. We bury our flesh to be reborn in him who listens below. The voice is unmistakable. Father Keene. Evelyn's breath falters as the tape warps, the words looping backward into guttural growls. Samuel points his camera toward a stone archway where the sound seems to resonate. In the playback's distortion, faintly, a second voice laughs, a child's, echoing where no children live. The deeper they move, the more the tunnels twist, branching into chambers where walls bear half-erased frescoes, saints with faces scratched away. In the distance, an organ note hums faintly, reverberating through the stone. Evelyn records it, whispering that the church's organ was dismantled decades ago. Samuel tries to speak but chokes on a sudden cold that freezes his breath midair. A whisper passes between them, not from the recorder but from the dark itself, reciting scripture in reverse. At the corridor's end stands a wooden confessional built into the wall, its curtain torn, its wood soaked black. Evelyn approaches, recording softly. Inside lies a skeleton draped in a priest's cassock, rosary still in hand. The skull faces downward as if ashamed. She lifts the recorder near its mouth, pressing play again. The same sermon repeats, but now, between each phrase, comes another sound. Faint knocks from beneath the confessional floor. Slow, deliberate, answering her questions. The air thickens as the last candle dies. In that instant, the tunnel breathes, a slow, pulsing draft that smells of old incense and something fresher. Blood. Evelyn whispers that she heard someone praying. Samuel insists it's just the playback echoing off the limestone. But the whispers persist, overlapping, layered like a choir trapped beneath the earth. The recorder in Evelyn's hand sputters to life without her touch, spinning backward. Through the static comes a single rasped phrase, "Confess, and you will join us." They turn toward the sound, and in that breathless silence the tunnel replies with the unmistakable creak of the church pews shifting above them. They follow the echo until the tunnel opens into a cavernous chamber. Rusted candlestands ring a circular pit carved into the earth, its rim lined with iron crosses hammered upside down. In the pit, bones form a spiral, arms, ribs, skulls, all arranged with deliberate care. At the center lies a single pulpit, overturned and scorched. Evelyn whispers Father Keen's name. For a moment it feels as though the chamber listens. Then, from somewhere in the darkness above, a soft hymn begins, the same melody recorded on the first tape, sung now by unseen voices. The voices swell until the stone vibrates. Samuel drops his camera, its screen flashing with distorted images, frames of people in pews, their mouths open in silent scream. Evelyn snatches the device, replaying the last seconds. The footage shows her and Samuel standing still, but behind them, dozens of pale figures kneel in prayer. Each head turns toward the lens in unison before the screen cuts to black. She looks up, and the space where the pit was now shimmers, replaced by the image from the footage itself. The congregation has returned, waiting for Mass to begin. The figures chant now, syllables bending backward into something inhuman. Evelyn raises her recorder and whispers into it, "Why did you stay?" The reply comes, layered over her own voice. "Because he promised we would rise." The ground shudders. The spiral of bones beneath her feet begins to shift, reassembling. Samuel grabs her arm, but the bones knit together like muscle, forming a shape, not quite human, not yet whole. From within, a hollow face emerges, its sockets glowing red like embers in a dying hearth. The hymn becomes a scream that never ends. As the screaming stops, a stillness descends so thick it drowns sound itself. The skeletal figure turns its hollow gaze toward Evelyn, then collapses into dust. In its wake remains a single object, a chalice of blackened silver, the same seen upstairs. Inside, the liquid swirls though untouched. Evelyn lifts it carefully, staring into its surface where faint shapes move, faces, hundreds of them, whispering prayers through bubbles that never break. She looks at Samuel, "We have to go," she breathes. But from behind, the confessional door creaks open again, and a quiet voice murmurs, "The Mass isn't over." Above ground, the wind stirs the dead leaves around St. Athelred's as Martha Dunn, the town's last resident, wakes from uneasy sleep. She hears it again, the faint chorus rising through the soil, a dirge echoing from below the ridge. The sound has haunted her for 50 years, ever since that night. She kneels at her window, whispering a prayer for the dead. Beneath her words, the scream returns, muffled but human, layered with hundreds of voices crying for release. The church breathes with them, its stones trembling as though remembering pain. In the basement, Evelyn's recorder flickers on, syncing perfectly with the rhythm of those cries above. Below, Evelyn stares at the chalice, the faces within it still mouthing words she cannot hear. Samuel films in silence until his screen glitches, replacing Evelyn's image with archival footage. Father Keane, standing at the same altar, preaching to a full congregation. The date reads October 17, 1971. As the footage warps, his eyes lock directly onto the camera. And for the first time, he speaks not into the past, but to them. "We opened the gate," he whispers, and he answered. The power surges, lights flare, and the hymn resumes, now spilling through every crack in the earth. The tape recorder begins to spin on its own, reversing the priest's words. Through distortion, a pattern emerges, fragments of Latin prayers rearranged into a plea. Evelyn translates, her voice breaking. "We begged him to save us from the fire," but the recording twists again, completing the phrase, "He became the fire." The walls pulse crimson as the crosses ignite one by one, the flame, moving without heat, crawling along the stone like veins of light. From above, faintly, Martha's cries merge with the chorus. The living and the dead joined in one impossible hymn. Evelyn falls to her knees as the sigils burn brighter, revealing frescoes beneath the soot. Not of saints, but of a great figure with no face, arms outstretched, holding the world in flame. Samuel tries to drag her back, but her eyes fix on something behind the altar. A doorway that wasn't there before, pulsing with light. She mutters that it's the root of the church, where Father Keane led them to renew their faith. The air grows heavy, pressing inward. The hymn fades to whispers. "Come and see." Against reason, Evelyn steps forward. Inside the doorway lies a chamber untouched by decay. In its center stands an altar of glass, beneath which a human heart beats, suspended, preserved, and still alive. Every throb echoes through the stone, matching the rhythm of the screams. Evelyn realizes it's not the heart of a saint, but of Father Keane himself, cursed to keep the congregation bound to their endless sermon. She lifts the recorder and whispers, "He never left." The heart quivers violently, its reflection flickering across the walls. Above them, the church bell tolls, a sound no one has heard since 1971. The heart thrums louder, shaking dust from the ceiling. Evelyn's breath sinks with its pulse, her veins lit faintly under her skin. Samuel shouts her name, but his voice warps, distant and tinny through the recorder's static. The whispers return, layered and hungry. The congregation begging for a release, the priest pleading for forgiveness, and beneath them, a deeper tone, whispering, "Stay." Evelyn reaches for the glass altar. The moment her fingers touch it, light floods the room, blinding and red. The heart stops. The silence afterward is deafening, a stillness so absolute it feels like the world has forgotten to breathe. When sight returns, Evelyn is standing inside a different space. The church nave, restored to its former glory. Sunlight streams through intact stained glass, dust floating like holy ash. Parishioners fill the pews, heads bowed, their faces peaceful yet pale. Father Keene stands at the altar, alive, smiling faintly. He welcomes her by name, thanking her for bringing the light back. But his smile trembles, his eyes full of pity. The hymn begins once more, and Evelyn realizes the congregation's voices are hollow, looping endlessly, like a recording without an end. Samuel's voice crackles through her recorder. "Evelyn, get out!" His voice sounds small, echoing from a different world. She looks down to see the device still in her hand, recording on its own. On the tape, her own voice answers, though she hasn't spoken. "He showed me the truth. We never left." The congregation turns toward her, faces stretching, smiles fracturing into silent screams. Father Keene lowers his hands and every candle flares black. The church melts back into ruin, pews collapsing, light extinguishing as the hymn fades to a single unending note. Samuel lunges forward, grabbing her arm. They're back in the basement, the altar cracked open, smoke curling upward. The heart inside is gone. The recorder lies between them, still playing the same line over. "We never left. We never left." He drags her toward the stairwell, but each step upward seems to repeat itself. The same rung, the same shadows, the same echo. The church has become a loop, a living confession feeding on its own memory. Every scream they hear is not from the past, but from now. From themselves. Forever descending. As dawn breaks over Draycott Hollow, Martha Dunn hears the bell toll once more. She steps outside, trembling, clutching her rosary. The church stands silent, its windows shattered, no light within. Yet from deep below, the scream rises again. Raw, human, and heartbreakingly familiar. She falls to her knees as the wind carries a whisper down the valley. The mass continues. Inside the ruins, the recorder blinks red amid the dust, Evelyn's voice repeating endlessly. "Every story begins with an opening door. Ours just never closed. The morning light never reaches the basement. Hours pass above, but Evelyn and Samuel remain trapped in a space that no longer obeys time. The recorder sits between them, whispering prayers that sound like their own voices, turned inside out. Samuel watches as Evelyn stares blankly toward the altar, her lips moving silently, eyes reflecting the faint red pulse, still glowing beneath the cracked glass. The scent of candle wax fills the air again. The church is rebuilding itself around them, wood growing from stone, walls knitting together like flesh. What died here refuses to stay buried. Samuel tries to shake her awake, calling her name over and over, but her voice answers from the recorder instead. He forgives those who remain. It says, calm, measured. Her body moves on its own, fingers tracing the Latin carvings along the altar, whispering the same lines Father Keene spoke decades ago. Samuel steps back, the air trembling around her like heat haze. Her hair lifts in the static eyes, reflecting nothing. When she finally turns toward him, her pupils are gone, replaced by the faint red glow of the heart that once beat beneath the glass. Through her, the church speaks. The voice is deep, resonant, and carries the weight of stone collapsing. It calls itself the Keeper, the one who holds the faithful within. Samuel demands to know what it wants. The voice replies, to be remembered. Around them, the pews rise from the dirt, spectral parishioners forming once more, each mouthing silent prayers. Evelyn extends a trembling hand toward Samuel and whispers, "Join us." The mass cannot end without the living. The recorder hums violently, the tape unraveling as the light intensifies to unbearable white. Samuel lunges for the recorder, slamming it against the floor. The sound cuts out instantly. The voices, the light, the movement, everything halts. Evelyn collapses, lifeless, her eyes rolling white. Then slowly, the silence breaks with a single breath. Not hers. The recorder clicks back on, its reels spinning backward without power. A man's voice emerges. "Father Keen, you can't silence a prayer," he says. "You can only change the one who says it." Samuel freezes as Evelyn's body jerks upright, her mouth opening in perfect sync with the playback. By dawn, the screams return to Draycott Hollow. Martha hears them again, but this time they're clearer, not distant or buried, but human, desperate. She walks to the ridge and sees light flickering from the church basement like a heartbeat beneath the ground. She whispers Evelyn's name, though she knows no one will answer. Inside, the camera lies where Samuel dropped it, its feed still running. The last frame captures Evelyn standing at the altar, motionless, her voice softly repeating Father Keen's words. The mass continues, and the living are welcome. Then, the feed cuts to black. A week later, the authorities reach Draycott Hollow. They find the church half buried in its own foundation. The stone walls collapsed inward as if drawn by gravity. The basement entrance is sealed, fused by melted glass. No trace of Evelyn or Samuel remains, only their camera, recovered near the altar, its battery long dead, though the lens still faintly warm. The sheriff listens to the last audio file, but there's nothing. No words, no sound, just a low pulse at the edge of hearing, like a heart still beating beneath the mountain. In town, the old bell tolls once more without a hand to pull its rope. Martha Dunn stands before what's left of the church, clutching her worn rosary until her knuckles whiten. She tells the sheriff that she warned them, that the voices never stopped, that the church never sleeps. He doesn't answer. As he walks away, she hears it again. Evelyn's voice, faint but clear, calling her name from somewhere below. Martha kneels, pressing her ear to the soil. The earth hums softly, rhythmically, a lullaby in reverse. She whispers the old prayer her mother taught her, and this time the ground whispers it back. That night, the wind rises again over the hollow. The fog returns, crawling down the ridge like smoke from an unseen fire. Inside the town, lights flicker in empty homes. Somewhere beneath, the church stirs, its bell rope twitching, its stones shifting, rebuilding. The hymn returns, faint and fractured, drifting through open windows. For those who remain, sleep offers no refuge. The screams from below have changed. They are not of pain now, but of prayer. The mass continues, not beneath the church, but within the town itself. Evelyn's final recording plays one last time, recovered from the camera's corrupted memory card. Her voice is soft, almost peaceful. "We came to document faith," she says. But faith documented us. A long pause follows, then a whisper, barely audible. "We understand now. You don't leave the church. The church leaves you." Static fills the remaining seconds, but under it, a faint humming. Hundreds of voices harmonizing in endless worship, forever sealed inside the mountain. The ridge falls silent again. The church remains sealed, half swallowed by time, its cross twisted, its name eroded from the sign. Locals avoid the path now, though on windless nights, some claim to hear the faint tolling of a distant bell. Others, the echo of a woman's voice reciting scripture in the dark. But most say nothing. For those who remember, silence is safer than prayer. In Draycott Hollow, the story of St. Athelred's never ends. It only waits for someone new to open the door.